I'm just going to ask some questions, a few brief questions about the GVESHO program. I actually came in yesterday morning. I've been waiting yesterday and today to ask these, so thank you. I've got the right people here, have I, for that? Thank you very much. Right. So look, I'm interested in that for anyone who might be listening, that's the Grants to Voluntary Environment, Sustainability and Heritage Organisations program, which will cease from the 1st of July this year, I understand. And I'm wondering how long that program or a materially similar predecessor has been in existence. I believe it's quite long-standing. Since 1974. Right, thank you for that. Now, I understand that the government will save $1.3 million a year by axing the program. It's a relatively small saving in the scheme of things. Was that the main rationale for the cut?
It all adds up, and given the budget mess that we've inherited from the Labor Green government that preceded us, we were in a position where we had to reassess the funding that was in place. It's a matter government can't keep spending money that it doesn't have. Government can't keep borrowing money and forcing our children and grandchildren to pay the price for unfunded expenditure today. So that is why, right across the budget, line by line, we've looked at opportunities to achieve savings so we can put our budget back on a sustainable footing.
Coming back to this specific program then, was that the only rationale, or were there other rationales for the ceasing of the program? Was it the funding reduction? Was it the saving the money?
We have looked right across government for opportunities to achieve savings. If there's anything else that the department can assist
with, I'm really interested in knowing. Yeah.
Sorry? It was a saving.
Saving. Okay, thank you for that. Was there any analysis or review of the program prior to the decision to cease the program?
All issues were considered by government through an orderly and methodical process, and of course that process involved careful consideration, including obviously discussions with all of the relevant portfolio ministers, including on this occasion the Minister for the Environment.
So you say all issues were considered. What other issues were considered then?
Well, that goes to the deliberative processes of government and cabinet processes, and you wouldn't expect me to go into those.
So was there any formal analysis or review?
Well, the government considered it through its usual cabinet deliberations, and we made a decision, and the decision was announced, and we take responsibility for that decision.
Okay. Was there any analysis or review of the impact on funded organisations' viability in ceasing the program?
Well, I've answered your question.
Well, no, you haven't actually, with respect, Minister. I'm asking, was there any, you can say yes or no, but was there any formal review or analysis, because it's going to affect the viability of organisations? Was that reviewed?
I won't go into the deliberative processes of the cabinet as we put the process together, the budget together.
I'm asking a factual question.
If you can let me finish my answer, thank you very much. If there is anything else that the department can add to this, I invite them to do so. But from the government's point of view, we obviously have worked very carefully right across the budget. We've made a lot of decisions to ensure that we put the budget back onto a believable path to surplus, as we must.
And you've said that already.
And of course, if the department has got anything to add to my answer, then I invite them to do so.
It's a factual question I'm asking. Was there a review or analysis before the decision? I'm certainly not wanting to know what
you are asking me about details that go to cabinet processes, and consistent with long-standing convention in these hearings. I'm not going to go into the deliberative process.
No, I'm not asking you to do that. Was there a formal review of the program?
You are asking me to do that.
Was there a formal review? I'm asking the department. Was there a formal review of the program?
Time is running out, Senator Wright.
I appreciate that.
Do you have another? Hang on, I'm speaking. Do you have another question, please?
I do have other questions.
Please ask the question.
I have questions that my constituents in South Australia have asked.
Well, please ask it.
All right.
Before time runs out.
I'm not getting an answer to was there a formal review.
With all due respect, I have actually answered your question. You might not like the answer.
No, I just don't think
But what I'm saying is that we have considered all of the issues that we considered relevant as part of the deliberative processes of the cabinet, and consistent with well-established practice. I'm not going to go into what are the confidential considerations undertaken by Cabinet.
All right, I'm putting in good faith, I'm doing my work, I'm doing my job, I'm putting these questions on behalf of my constituents in South Australia and generally, because these are historical societies, these are organisations that leverage a lot of voluntary work who are interested.
And I appreciate that.
I'm interested in knowing, was there any consideration given to a transition period
Senator
to
Wright,
enable organisations to adjust to these
Senator Wright, there are a lot of meritorious causes that if the previous government hadn't made such a mess of the budget, that we might have been able to continue to fund. But given that we are on a completely unsustainable spending growth trajectory that will hurt our country's future, we had to focus very carefully on the decisions that needed to be made in order to ensure that government spending is sustainable again, so that we actually have we appropriately protect our living standards and our prosperity for the future.
All right, I have one last question then, thank you for that. Given that these are administrative costs, payments made to organisations to enable them to cover...
They're not administrative costs, they're administered programs is what you mean.
But they're not for salaries, they're for the organisational ability, and it leverages a great deal of voluntary work in civil society throughout Australia. Was any consideration given to who would continue to do that work if those organisations aren't viable? In a sense, I guess people are asking me to put in these estimates questions,
the federal government...
Is it a false economy? Are you actually losing a great deal of voluntary value in civil society by making a relatively small saving?
If we hadn't inherited $314 billion in cumulative and projected deficits from the previous government, if we didn't inherit a debt trajectory taking us to $667 billion of government debt, we might have had some spare cash to spread around, but we don't. We don't have the money, and we can't keep spending money that we haven't got. That is the simple truth. Now, I understand that not everybody will accept that, but we have a job to do, and that job involves repairing the budget mess that we've inherited, and we're taking that very seriously because it's important for our country's future.
So who will do the work?
Order.
So who will do the work then, is my question, my final question.
That is your final question, I can guarantee
thank
you.
Thank you. I do appreciate that I had extra time to ask
You shouldn't assume that the only way that work is done in these areas involves taxpayer-funded support. There's a whole range of...
Point.
Well, that is
They're
not the
voluntary.
only...
Okay, order. Time has expired for program 1.1. Thank you for those representatives. We'll now...